I'm Melisa Idris and you're watching The Future is Female, the show where we find the extraordinary in every woman. Joining me on the show today is the CEO and founding partner of the award-winning creative advertising agency MNC Saatchi Malaysia. I have with me Datin, Seri, Sharifah, Menyalara Hussien, who is better known in the industry as Lara Hussien. Now, she's also the granddaughter of the first Prime Minister, Tunku Rahman, Putra Al-Haj. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure.
It's great to have you here because, MNC Saatchi has been around since, was it 2003?
2003 we set up, yeah.
So it's 16 years ago.
Yeah.
You set it up
Long
with,
time.
What was that, just a handful of people and 2 clients back then.
Yeah.
And it's grown over the years to 120 people. Mm-hmm. You've won a slew of awards. Talk to me about what that was like in the early years. I mean, first of all, did you identify a gap in the market that you felt you needed to set up an MNC Saatchi branch here in Malaysia?
Well, I mean, it was basically interesting because they found me, the MNC Saatchi partners in London, and approached me and asked whether I would be willing to set up, because they'd had an office in Singapore, mm-hmm. and there were only 4 offices around the world, because MNC Saatchi, as you know, is a spin off from Saatchi and Saatchi. And so they were quite new at that time as well, globally. So when they approached me, they said, would I be willing to set up in Kuala Lumpur? And I kind of grabbed the idea, and I thought, this is something that I've always wanted to do, create something that, from scratch, and something that I could own as well, and just build it from nothing.
So the KL office was the 5th office?
Yes.
Globally?
Yes.
That's amazing. So what were those early years like? So you had, say, 7, 10 people?
Yeah, and I just felt like, what have I got to lose, right? I was, young, and I thought, what have I got to lose? I just basically got a few friends who I've known in the industry, like a creative partner, and I had an account service person, and we just started with 10 people in a small room office down the road, where where I used to work. Okay, so
at what point did you realize, okay, we've gone from, you took your first sigh of relief, saying we've gone from startup, we're actually now an established company. When did you
realize
feel that shift? Yes.
Well, because when we started, actually, we had 2 foundation clients, so we really needed to get, going. Mm-hmm. From the word go, I mean, there was nothing was stopping us, because we had clients that we needed to service, and they really, the clients were wonderful because they believed in us. I mean, we were just a startup, right? And they really wanted to work with us and partner with us, which was great. So I was lucky in that sense, because not everybody gets 2 foundation clients. So I had 2 foundation clients, and basically I knew that from that day onwards, I just needed to grow, and we just kept on, winning business and went after business and hired more and more people. And the next thing we knew, we were 30 people, then 50 people, and just.
What do you think it was? I mean, what was it? Was it the talent? Was it the idea that everyone in this company believed in what the principles of MNC Saatchi or Saatchi and Saatchi was at that point in time? What do you think?
I think it was a bit of everything. I mean, first of all, we knew that, it was the values that had been set by the MNC Saatchi principles, because the MNC Saatchi globally started like that. This never say die, this hunger and this passion to win from nothing, because we had to grow organically. It wasn't like I had business falling on my plate, on my lap, and I had no choice. So the spirit, when people joined us, they knew what's MNC Saatchi. Nobody really knew
at that
time who MNC Saatchi was and what kind of company it was. So everybody who joined had to sort of kind of inculcate the same values.
What was the advertising landscape like at that point? I mean, and how different is it from today, from what we know it as today?
It was good then, because we were the business was booming, economy was stimulated. We had a lot of there's a lot of potential businesses that we could go for. Competition wasn't that tough at that time.
Right.
Still reliant on traditional advertising, and
it was a whole different game.
Yeah, it was
back
a different
then,
game.
Right? Okay.
Different game.
And for you personally, Lara, I mean, you've led this company for so long. I'm just wondering what you feel you've learned about leadership throughout the years. And the reason I ask is because I personally believe that leadership and people management, it's really a skill that you have to learn and you have to hone, and you make mistakes along the way. So as someone who has seen a measure of success throughout the years, what do you think personally you've learned about leadership?
I think it has to come from within, because you have to have this passion that you want to lead, and you want to build something, and you want to nurture people.
Right.
I mean, and I had that from within. I always believed that this is something that I've always wanted to do, and it's also this bravery that you need to have, and this sort of fearless kind of attitude that you're just willing to take risks and never afraid to fail. So I was very daring in that sense, because I always felt like, okay, this is what I've got, and I've just got to do it, right? And I wasn't afraid to fail. I was
you weren't afraid to fail.
I wasn't afraid to fail, good. And I was determined. To succeed, and I knew that there's no turning back, and what have I got to lose? I kept on saying that to myself. If it doesn't work, then...
A lot of women shy away from wanting to put their hand up for a leadership position, or they have, the imposter syndrome, where you feel like you're not capable of doing the job. And I recently noticed that you were conferred the Regional Women Leading Change Awards. You were the first and only Malaysian woman to win such an accolade. Your thoughts, Lara, on where you think where you hope women can lead more change? Which areas do you think?
Well, surprisingly, I think you would be surprised to know that advertising is actually one of the few industries that is so open for women. I mean, I honestly feel that any woman could join and become CEO. It is possible.
Really?
Yes, because it's an industry that really embraces equality, equal pay, merit. It is an industry that really supports women, because it's an industry where women can come in. We value the qualities of women.
That's surprising to me, because the perception is otherwise. And you know what? We're going to come back and continue our conversation precisely about the perceptions of the advertising industry. Stay with us on The Future is Female. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Future is Female. I have with me Datin's Lara Hussien, the CEO of MNC Saatchi Malaysia. Now, just before the break, you said something very interesting. You said that this industry is open to women. It's it's really receptive of women. So all they have to do is really just be part of it. I, on the other hand, always assumed that this was a male-dominated industry. It's the madman Madison Avenue era that kind of created the blueprint for the advertising industry, and then subsequently the PR and then the marketing industry. Is that not the case? I mean, is that just a perception that we have, that the advertising industry is fueled by, whiskey and long hours?
Oh, no, not at all, because I think that's a perception possibly in the West. Yes, it is male dominated. Okay. But not here, not in Asia. I think it is a versatile industry. It's an industry that embraces the values that women have. For example, the sort of sense of efficiency, that proactiveness, commitment, for example, and it is an open industry in the sense that any woman can join.
Right.
you know.
So you haven't, in your experience, found that there is a disparity or gender inequality in this industry?
No, not at all. I mean, that's why I'm here, because it's up to you. It's it's what you make of it, right? If you want to go to the top, you can. Like nothing stops you.
So talk to me about the gender pay gap. You mentioned also just before the break that this is an industry that you see equal pay. Why is that? Why did you make that comment? Because in almost every other industry, banking being perhaps one of the most notorious, there is a significant gulf between the pay.
Because if you're a graduate, you come from X university, a guy comes from X university, we pay the same.
Right.
And as you climb up the ladder, it's the same process that we go through. It's the same evaluation criteria. It's based on merit. It's based on talent.
Okay.
And we value talent. The only thing I would say that we would like to encourage more women to join the creative department. I think there could be more women in the creative department. I think a lot of, perhaps in the creative area, it is possibly slightly more male skewed.
Okay, that's interesting, because I also read something that said that globally, maybe 15%, about 15% of creative directors are women. And that for me, that was a bit of a surprise.
15, right?
15. So I was wondering why that was. I mean, why is it that we're not seeing women in the top positions in creative departments?
Okay, in the creative department, I think it's slightly harder because, let's take, for example, in the account servicing and planning. I think that's easier because, you have a very, working hours are slightly more manageable.
Right.
But whereas in the creative department, they could be working 24/7.
Especially if there's a pitch, you're talking long hours.
Yeah,
right?
and creative people, they tend to work at night, so you might have a family. So you find that as you get more senior, it gets it's possibly tougher.
Okay.
That's one. Also, I think women tend to be more, perhaps in the more rational. Yeah, more left brain maybe, and maybe they. In possibly an easier entry would be in the servicing.
Have you noticed
side.
that in your experience? I mean, Saatchi is known for its creatives. What have you done to perhaps make it easier for women, in terms of the long hours, in terms, perhaps new mothers may not necessarily fit this kind of structure. So have you had to do anything?
We see the good thing is that we're small, in the sense that, we're 120 people. So actually I can create whatever policy I want. And I do. So it's on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
Like, I took 6 months off maternity. And I have encouraged women, if they want to take extra time off, I understand, and they do that.
All right.
And that's fine. And if they want to do part-time, they can. They want flexi hours, they want to do a 4-day week.
So you tailor it for the mother, the woman involved.
I tailor it, yeah.
Wonderful. Since we're talking about creatives, I also noticed recently that Britain had banned ads that depicted harmful gender stereotypes. So, you don't have any more ads of women doing the dishes or women who can't drive, or vice versa, men who can't change diapers or cook.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a wonderful positive development, and I'm just wondering, I would like to get your thoughts on that. I mean, Britain being the first, or actually no, this is mimicking quite a few countries, Scandinavian countries, some of the European countries as well. Do you think that it will come
I'm
here?
all for that because there's a huge concern on gender equality in London.
Right.
I mean, we have a global diversity head that only her purpose is really to fix this problem.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what she does, and she creates like global initiatives for the network that we have to follow.
Right.
For example, training or certain policies and things like that.
Well, for instance, what kind of?
Well, training is a big one. So that she does a lot of women leadership courses. She does also create a lot of mentoring programs for women. So basically, encouraging more and more women to join advertising,
right,
so that we can then balance the gender sort of.
The imbalance
numbers,
with gender. Yeah. So, as the head of a creative agency as yourself, Lara, do you think that having more women in the industry has led to, or will lead to, having less sexist ads, where you focused on a scantily clad woman, for instance?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it really affects everything. If you have a woman that leads, if you have a woman boss, the way that the agency is structured, the culture that's being disseminated, the culture that's being created is different, because it'll be the whole aura is different, and the creation of the work will be different.
Right. The tone of the conversation right down at the table when you're bouncing ideas off the pitch, that will also be different, because
of course, because I wouldn't approve something that's going to be sexist,
right,
but a male boss might see it differently. So the skew is different, and the sense of harmony is different. I want a place that's harmonious, for example, and a male boss may not be so important for him.
What about to localize it? I mean, that's happening in Britain and other parts of the world. Do you think that this kind of awareness, or the young kids call it woke, right? Do you think this is spreading to the advertising industry here in Malaysia? Will we be seeing less gender stereotypes in ads?
I hope so. I really hope so, because I think people need to wake up to the fact that we shouldn't be stereotyping women to be like
your conversations with clients, do you notice that they're more open to moving away from that kind of old thinking?
Well, I'm hoping that we can progress and change, but of course, you see, it's partly the market as well, right, and partly the mentality of our consumers, right? You want to see a pretty girl, you want to see someone that looks good, and it's just that needs to change. Yeah. People need to be real. Like, we can't be having just very physically nice looking girls, and then.
For me, I'm thinking the more women are in leadership positions or decision-making positions for the client side as well, then you have change there. The more that women have disposable income, they're making consumer decisions, and it's a trickle-down effect, right?
It is.
I think so.
So the net is that we need more women.
It's a win-win
at
for
work.
everyone.
Women to work.
Exactly.
We need more women to work.
We're going to come back and continue the conversation right here on The Future is Female. Welcome back to The Future is Female. Datin Sri, Lara Hussien, the CEO of MNC Saatchi Malaysia, is here on the show with me. She is also the granddaughter of Tunku Abdul Rahman. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your grandfather. The second edition of the book Dialogue, Thoughts on Tunku's Timeless Thinking, that was released, the original was released a couple of years ago, but the second edition was released re-released recently. And this is essentially an anthology of all his kind of thoughts and principles, right? I thought we could do with a bit of a reminder of some of the things that Tunku was known for, his wisdom and his real love for people and, passion for unity. I'm just wondering what you, as his granddaughter, thinks about Malaysia today and what we would do good to remember about his principles.
Okay, so thanks. I mean, first of all, I felt it was my responsibility, or rather a duty, or even a desire to do this, because I really wanted people to know him and to remember him, because I find that a lot of young people don't really know who Tunku was and what he did and all his achievements.
Just by name, right? But I guess they don't know what he stood for.
Yeah, and probably don't know much about his achievements and what he did and him as a person. So this is really an insight into him, but it's written by so many people from different walks of life. So that's what makes it interesting, because we wanted to make it interesting and colorful, and there's lots of pictures and stories, loads of stories about him.
Why was he so special? Why do you think he was so special?
I think that because he was a true Malaysian in the sense that he had no, no idea about, no prejudices on race, gender, money. He was one of the most compassionate, selfless person I've ever known.
Do you have a favorite anecdote from the book?
There's so many, but he had so many stories, like on for example, on compassion. There was a story that was written by the late Peter Velapan about how he was in the stadium. Do you know that one?
Oh, giving the shirt off his back. Yes, because he saw someone who was in need.
Yeah.
Tunku gave the shirt off his back too. Okay.
Yeah, and so he has, he was so compassionate to everyone, and so and just loved people of all races, and had always taught us, to stay away from greed and why is money so important. And we grew up believing that, like we grew up thinking that money is not the be all and end all of everything, right?
But you do come from a position of privilege, and a very prominent background. So what do you think you've contributed to affect change in Malaysia?
I'm just like, I just want people to know. I just want people to sort of go back to our fundamental values. That who we were when we got our independence. We were, I used to pride myself about and tell people that, Malaysia's like one of the most harmonious, united countries. Yeah, and diverse. And
we're living together.
And so proud of it. And I want to keep saying that. And I just want people to sort of go back to that as an inherent point of difference that we have, because no other country can claim that.
Why do you think we're so polarized now? I mean, and that's really the key, right? We no longer kind of relate to each other on a basic human level. It's always kind of us against the other.
I don't know. I think people have become perhaps more racially sensitive, maybe racially insular, like just thinking about yourself and not, just wanting to sort of integrate, And I think integration is key. For us to work together and just set aside our differences, because that's what's going to make us greater, right? Stronger together.
So would you say that you're optimistic or hopeful that things are going to get better, that we will become what we once were socially?
I hope so. And I don't want to sound biased, but I think we need more people like him.
Okay.
And we need more people who believe that they are truly Malaysian first, and that I think would set the agenda and set the values for the future, and for the young people to believe in that.
Right. Yeah. So it's important, I think, for a younger generation to know what Tunku stood for.
Yeah. Exactly.
As we wrap up the show in the final few minutes, I do want to get some thoughts from you. I mean, I came across this initiative where they had women write letters to their younger selves, to give advice. So if I could ask you, if you were to write a letter to your 30-year-old self, what advice would you give her?
Wow.
It's a tough one, isn't it? It's a heavy question.
I would say, oh my gosh, I would say, like keep on doing what you do. Like keep striving for success. Keep at it. Don't give up.
Is there a reason why you're saying that? Was there a point, perhaps in your 30s, where you felt like giving up or stumbling?
I mean, like I not giving up, but there were moments when I wanted to get out of the industry, and I thought, I don't know whether I can go through it. Yeah, and like there were moments when I just wanted to maybe just be a mom, But I stayed on. But I guess, I would say keep going, and you can still have beautiful children and keep working and be who you are, which I'm glad I did, because I have beautiful children And I'm here.
Well, I'm glad you did, and the industry is, I'm sure, glad that you
Thank
did.
you.
Thank you
Thanks
so much,
Melissa,
for being on the
Thank
show
you.
today. It's been such a pleasure. That's all the time we have for this week's episode of The Future is Female. I'm going to be back with you same time next week, speaking to more women who are extraordinary. So make sure you catch me then. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.